Hey, what's up, guys? Got another deck for you today. This time, bringing it back to Tag Team Cell, which I think is a deck that is still very, very strong, even after the VTP nerfs. I think it did lose a little bit of consistency. However, most of its main combos still exist quite fine, and most of the cards that you really were going to dig for with VTP, you can still kind of get at. Other than, like, let's say, Times Warriors 12. But anyway, let's break down this list here. So, of course, we got the Cell and P here. We're just going to use all the Awakening set, other than, I guess, I like to just use the Perfection 3. Probably never really going to get there, but I personally have it there just for the crit attack. I like that a lot. If I ever was to like play against Ball, which I think it can be kind of a tough matchup at times, it's there as just a ball capper. Pretty good. Also, the pile kill is really nice. Otherwise, the two other levels are just going to be doing the main theme of the deck, which is destroy effects. Where we got here is we have all the setups. Of course, we are going to be running blue training, so setups are pretty important, but we're going to start with blue blockade at 2. Just pretty staple blue setup. I like it a lot. Blue battle readiness for fetching allies, which again, more for kind of searching out the allies for blue training combats, but also just kind of digging if you want to build up a certain board and you want certain allies for a certain situation. Most of the time, you're just going to be kind of holding this until you're ready to do training. We have 3 blue training. Main card of, I shouldn't say main card of the deck, but one of the big kind of engines in the deck for Mill. Some blue cell lists, blue tag cell lists are going to be different. I think generally most are going to be running 3 blue training, but I could see you running it at 2 and trying to fit other cards. We have 2 blue save. This card is amazing for blue training. You bounce an ally. Cell being able to tutor allies in his 1 and 2 is really great with this card, and then being able to immediately go get a stealth setup from your deck is awesome to help you fill those training combats. Also, what's really nice combo is when you have Cell Junior escaping out. So since the rewarding on blue save is all 1 sentence, you return an ally to search your left for a stealth setup. You can still banish Cell Junior and go get the setup because it's all 1 sentence. It doesn't check to say if you do, so you can pop out Cell Junior for extra mill and still get him going, and get that blue training going in like one of those mill combats, which is really nice. Whoops, pick up that Visage here. I guess we'll get to Visage. Just helps slow down aggro. It's nice for that. It's a mill card. It's definitely a high priority kill for a lot of aggro decks, so it kind of makes them choose between things like training or your other setups. Blue Taming Technique at a 2 helps you kick out the setups from your hands if you dead draw them. Really nice, just a great card, gets you more allies. Really, really good card. Space is pretty tight in this deck. We'll get to the final 2 setups here. Blue Vision. This card is just good for the training turns, but also helps you maybe if you have one of the power allies, such as Raditz or Goldo, or maybe Cooler. You want to tutor one of them out, or maybe you want to trade out your Tora against another mill deck because you don't want to take extra mill from them. Where this card's really nice, and it does grab from the pile of their life deck when you do the effect, which is really nice. Now, one card I do want to kind of get in here is Blue Stylish Pose. For the moment, though, we don't have it in there. I could see it taking the place of at least maybe 1 Battle Readiness, or maybe both Battle Readiness. It's going to come with a little more testing. Maybe just cut down to 1 Blue Vision. I don't know. I think having multiple shuffle procs is kind of the issue of this deck, not so much the ally surge. So I think Blue Vision's going to probably stay. I could see Battle Readiness getting cut down to 1, and I could see maybe one of these other cards over here getting cut down. But it's kind of a hard call right now. But Stylish Pose could definitely be really strong. It is a very strong card. Having the crit is the biggest reason I would put it in, not even for the actual searching part. It would just be for the crit. And sorry, there's all this glare here. I'm in a different location than normal for doing this deck breakdown. So next we'll get to the allies. So we have Cell Junior trapped and Cell Junior escaping. Of course, you're going to put them in any Cell Awakening deck. Trapped helping you stop from being crit because that -1 life card modifier is really nice against things like Sinchoke. Otherwise, if you lose all your allies, he still has a +1 modifier in your mill, which is really nice. Raditz, no, this is a really good ad. This is what I think helps put Cell in kind of one of the top tier. I would argue he's probably the top tier blue training MP. You have to forgive that I'm using a proxy. I got to go find my foil one, replace it here, but Because of Cell's power on his level 2, which you can get to in this deck, we do run Training Attack. I don't run Blue Dominance, which that might, I guess, could see a +1 if I really feel like it, but Cell's level 2 can set your MP power, or sorry, set your power level to 0. So that means you can use these active power allies, which is a really good reason why we run Raditz, which when you're at 0, you can use him to go get a styled setup. So, again, helps extend those trainings, or maybe you want to help set yourself up earlier, quicker. Really, really good. You can also play him from your hand to rejuvenate a card, so if you want to, what's great is, like, if you are at 0, you could play him, rejuvenate, like, a training out of your, your discard pile or whatever setup you want on your pile, and then you use his power the next action to go grab it. Really, really good. Guldo, only reason he's in here is because Cell can set himself to 0. Otherwise, he's probably going to be an ally he's really only going to be used if you can get to 2 or if you're against a physical aggro matchup, but he is a block. That's why he's in right now. Ginyu is another ally that I'd love to add in here, but again, kind of space right now. I just don't know where I'd put it. That's the biggest issue right now. Maybe some of these more active cards would get cuts, but for right now, a lot of them I think I kind of need, but we'll see. Cooler, this is going to be one that you might take for the beginning of the match if you think you're against an Unleash matchup. Chilled is an ally, also too, that could maybe take his spot. I think Chilled would honestly almost be better. Probably going to put Chilled in instead of him, but they're both good for different effects. I think for the most part, the only straight up level effects you're going to be seeing are going to be maybe Namekian Leaping Cooks, maybe Dig. Otherwise, everything else is Unleashed, which, Chilled counters. So I could see that. I could see that getting swapped. But it is nice if you do discard him from your hand with things like Blue Taming Technique. He can go into play. I think that is the only one discard outlet effect I have in the deck that could put him into play. Or if he gets knocked out of your hand by Mischievous Master, I suppose. But really, he's just there for the passive effect. But could be Chilled, for sure. I think it's probably going to become Chilled. I'll have to go just throw my Chilled in here, but we'll see. Tora, of course, the final ally, gives +1 to all your mill effects. That's what you're trying to do. Really, really good. He is part of the reason why I can see you are going for Awakening 3, just because you can tutor him from any zone with Awakening 3, because he's a Saiyan traded ally. But, very, very key ally. Not always going to want him out. He's a lot of time, you're going to be maybe the one that you're going to shuffle away first against certain matchups, because you want to enter in, use your powers to get extra mill, and then put him away so you don't get the mill bonus bumped on you. But definitely really, really strong. It's nice that his mill is constant, unlike Cell Jr.'s trapped. It only happens when he's alone. So he's really, really good. Next we have Loop Trail at 2. Mostly at 2 because mostly just spacing, really. Maybe it could go to 3, I don't know. Not a whole lot of board that we're too worried about. Deflection Drill, I suppose. Maybe Namekian Aggressive Drill, but for the most part, Black Searching Technique, I suppose, too, but we do have other answers for setups, which I'll get to. 2 Blue Decap to help you pick out those betrayals. Head Knocks, or Challenging Strikes, Challenging Strike being one of the key cards. Head Knock, of course, going to be, great in your anger matchup, but also for Decap, being able to set yourself to 0 if you need to be able to use your Goldo ally or your Raditz ally. Really, really strong. Blue Challenging Strike at 3, of course, increases all your mill effects by 1. If it does hit, you can help knock out these setups out of your hand, which is really great. But it lasting for multiple turns potentially, or rather multiple combats, because it's to the end of your next turn. So if your opponent if you enter on your opponent and you play this, it'll go through their turn and then your next turn. I mean, potentially 3 combats of +1 mill is really not to be underrated. It's something that you gotta kind of keep in consideration when you're playing this card, or if you're thinking about even throwing it in a combat. But very, very strong in this deck, especially because you always at least have 1 mill proc off these two. Sorry, the level 1 and 2 here. Not to mention if you have Cell Jr. escaping that you're grabbing with these levels, there's an extra 2-3 mill that you can be getting off that. 2 mill off like those powers alone. So next we have Cell's Drain Attack, of course, to help you get up to level 2 generally, maybe to 3, but also the hit effect on it can be nice if you're in training combat and you don't have enough of these shuffling cards, which again is kind of maybe one of the issues with this build right now. We'll kind of test it more, but I feel, again, you're not really kind of going for that one-turn training kill combat like you are in a lot of other training decks. With like, Cell is a lot better at kind of getting entered on or entering with kind of not full setup and kind of just chipping away. But Drain Attack really, really strong, giving you that level. Sinister Choke, of course. Crit Attack, especially against ball decks, or even some ally decks. Being able to have that crit is great, and then against control decks, but mostly it helps you close out against ball decks, which is probably the best part about it. And because of that reason, that's also why we have Assisted Kamehameha. And also all these cards are unpreventable damage. And going with the destroy effects of your deck, the mill effects, your opponent's endurance doesn't matter against this deck at all. And that's what's really nice. But Assisted at 2, it sucks that we can't crit with it. I could try to maybe throw a card into mod, like a ball 1 would probably be what I would throw in. Before I would, maybe a Lifting Drill, but probably a ball 1, Namek 1, but for now it's just this. Namek 7 could see an ad, I suppose, but again, the room is really tight, and it's kind of like, you gotta kind of choose what you really want in here, so. Overpowering attack at 1, of course, not being, 3 of card anymore, but I think it's still good at a 1. You don't really need allies as much in this deck, but it is good to just have the search when you need it on demand, because your mastery always makes sure that your allies get back in your deck. Still a very good card. Blue Farewell, Stop All. I run this in all my blue training decks. Just very good, especially with aggro being around. Puzzler, mill card. So does combo with Challenging Strike, Tora, Cell Jr., but also it's one of your biggest protections against things like Black Face Off and Vegeta's Prideful Challenge. Red Relaxation as well. Great card. I love this card. Really good. Any deck that's doing destroy effects, even a lot of controller decks that want to be careful with their board. Really, really good card. Blue Quick Save at a 1. Really, this is kind of experimental right now, but against aggro decks, against decks hitting you with a random tug or any sort of shuffling effect, like if you're playing against another cell, being able to just dip out of combat. It's, between this Blue Farewell and Time is a Warrior's Tool, it's just extra protection, really. Really, really great card. Right now we have 2 blue defensive effect. Now this could definitely see a move, but I think this card does a lot for you. Shutting off opponent's anger entirely, having 6 endurance is really nice, but against a lot of these aggro decks, and even some of these like slower kind of grindy leveling decks, this card can just completely shut them down. A lot of the power of these aggressive MPs is being able to chain levels into combat, so playing this card can shut them down quite a bit. And when you get things like Cooler Ally out with this card, people just don't move against you, on top of the 3 blue head knocks and decaps for head knock. Very, very hard to level. Also, Cell level 1 is an anger 2 lower if you shuffle an ally away with him. So again, you have pretty decent anti-anger. Now, you're not going to probably be able to stop speed anger. It mostly is depending on how early that you see those head knocks, and maybe like a decap, or the defensive effect, but it can be done. It can be done. You can slow them down and hold them out long enough. We have 2 Cell Style. This awesome card. A lot of decks don't run name attacks, so this going back in your deck is really great. Mill 3 is really great. Generally, it's going to at least be Mill 4 because of one of your allies. But really, really good card. Shuffles your deck, which is always good. I suppose we don't have a lot of recursion in this deck, but it is still nice. Very, very good card. We get over the block line here, and I guess the end of the events. Start with Time. Good card, of course. Shifting Maneuver at 2. I would love to have 3, but spacing right now. Blue Enjoyment. Now this card isn't a block per se, but it can be used defensively. Very, very strong. Mostly you're going to be using it to pick out a setup out of your pile. But if you need to, stop someone's damage, what's nice is that it's prevent 3 life in 3 stages. So just like Resolute Mastery, if you manage to get down to 0, this is a prevent 6 against a physical attack, which is really, really nice. Stare Down, I put it as like a block. Really, you're going to be able to snipe your opponent's best attack out of their hand. So That's why it's more in the defensive category. Now, this is a card I think is really meta dependent. I have this in at 3, and I suppose I'll see if I really care about it at all. But this is an awesome, awesome card. I always float this around in a lot of my blue decks. I have sits at 3. Protects you against blue searching technique. Protects you against Vegeta's Prideful Challenge. You can use it in either player's planning step, which is awesome. Just very, very good card. Very, very, very strong card. It does suck that it only prevents damage from a physical attack, but at least it has 1 endurance, and, you know, if you were going to be getting hit by a deck with unpreventable damage anyway, you probably weren't going to be doing too hot to begin with, so, you know, that is, you know, something to consider. But I think it's definitely right now very, very strong. This card and Puzzler are very, very going to be useful depending on the matchup, especially against those Vegeta decks. Also, being able to, well, actually, I was going to talk about Instant Transmission is a card that I was considering as well, purely for like the Puzzler kind of effect. But again, I think Instant Transmission is a little too niche. But either way, I think this card is definitely worth running right now in a lot of blue decks. But it could see a swap to like Blue Crouch. I had Blue Wrist Block for the longest time in this spot. I do like Wrist Block, but when I was running that card, it was because there was a lot more of a meta of Adept and Resourceful physical beat decks. And I haven't really seen many people playing those decks for a while. Not that they're not there. And I think they are still pretty strong, but most people aren't really playing like those kind of physical decks that I'm seeing. You know, some people are, but I feel like most people are playing Mischievous and Ruthless Beats right now, which aren't really board heavy. Most of their board is kind of when entering board. So that's why I think this is probably superior to Wrist Block right now. But again, I think Crouch could make it in here. I think more blocks could probably make it in here. It's just kind of a matter of like what attacks do I want to cut out, or maybe I just don't want defensive effect. Maybe I don't want blue save. Maybe shifting maneuver isn't the right block. I think shifting maneuver is probably better than having a dedicated block right now. But you know, we'll never know until I guess I play some more and I figure out what I think I'm playing against. Blue Brace at 3, of course. Like this card, Insane Club, awesome. Gives you a setup. It's what you want. Anyway, this is my list. I know a lot of people have had different lists. I've played against a couple people. I think Edgar, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but it's Bustamante, I think. I've played against his deck a few times in Octagon. I really enjoyed his deck. I kind of took cues from his about running the assisted. Also, I kind of used experience from when I played with Timbato. He was playing Dynamic Raditz, running assisted Kamehameha for ball matchups. So maybe assisted doesn't really need to be at a 2. We'll see. I mean, he ran a 1 of, so I was thinking maybe a 1, but I think 2 is probably better. But otherwise, I think there's definitely the cards that I do want to add in, like Ginyu. And maybe Stylish Pose will come in at a 1 or 2. But again, kind of testing and going to have to see what I really want to cut. But I really feel like at least these cards right here can't really get cut. I don't really feel like any setups out of here can really get cut other than maybe Battle Readiness. I could see a cut down to 1. The Allies, I think, Chilled could probably be better than Cooler. That's probably what I'll end up doing, personally. That's probably what I'll do, but Still Style I think is too good. Defensive Effect I think is really, really strong. I think these attacks are all necessary. I think these blocks are all necessary. I could see Precarious changing. I could see Shifting maybe changing, but really, that's the hard part, I think, with training decks is fitting a combination of the blocks and the right amount of attacks, but also just having the right allies. So anyway, hopefully this kind of gives you an idea. I think this deck is very strong. As a matter of fact, I told Kevin Dennis to try to run this back at Michigan, way back in May. I thought it was, and this was granted VTP was still around, but I think this is still a really strong deck. I think Mill is really strong. I think this is a great matchup against ally decks because of the cell 1 and 2. I think the biggest thing is figuring out the right balance of attacks and blocks really in the deck. Maybe it needs to be more blocks. Maybe it's kind of more of a Kami effect. This is going to be something I'll probably play some more. This could be something I pick up a bit more. I've always liked blue training, especially too. But I think this is a pretty strong deck. Maybe you have a better idea or a better build. I'd love to hear about it. Hope you guys enjoyed this.